Today, we're diving into the sprawling sands of Arrakis as we review Dune Part 2. Spoiler alert, it's a cinematic ride full of stunning visuals, powerhouse performances, and a kiss that left us scratching our heads. Stick around to hear all about it. Hey there, movie buffs and TV junkies. Welcome to the Drive-In Chat Podcast, the show where we roll out the red carpet for all things film and television. I'm Gabe Whiteman, and today we're going to explore everything from the jaw-dropping acting to the mesmerizing cinematography of Dune Part 2. But first, let's dive into some movie news. First up, we have our first look at one of the popcorn buckets that will be released alongside Venom: The Last Dance. The image of the popcorn bucket will be on the YouTube version of this episode, so go check it out at Drive-In Chat Pod. It is a huge for a popcorn bucket, but I guess that's what you get for a Venom popcorn bucket. So for all you audio listeners, it is basically a full-on shoulders, from the shoulders to the head of Venom, and his mouth is completely open, and I'm assuming that's where you get your popcorn from. But that is probably one of the biggest popcorn buckets that I've seen. But I don't know. Maybe it'll be smaller in person, but it'll be very interesting to see when the movie comes out. I don't know. The other piece of movie news is that, according to Discussing Film, Jon Watts, the director of Spider-Man: Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, has signed a first look at film deal with Walt Disney Studios. The deal includes directing films for both Disney and 20th Century. Personally, I think this is fine. I hope he doesn't return to Marvel because I'm very interested in Daniel Cretton directing Spider-Man 4. And honestly, I don't think Watts should do justice to any of the Marvel films. Seriously, I think that Jon Watts, he did a fine job with the Spider-Man films, but he shouldn't touch any other Marvel films. I think he should just let it rest and, I don't know, maybe change it up for a chance. I don't know. For instance, I know that he's directing Wolves, which is a Apple TV movie, and that honestly looks fine. So I think he has a better chance at everything else that's non-Marvel. But hey, that's just me. And that's all we have for movie news. So grab your spice and let's get into the review. Let's kick things off with what really stole the show, the acting. Honestly, it's pretty phenomenal. Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica is a standout. Her portrayal is haunting, perfectly capturing the complexities of the Bene Gesserit. I think that's how you pronounce it. You feel her pain and strength, making her much more than just Paul's mother. I feel like even though she wasn't the main character, she absolutely stole the show when it comes to the Bene Gesserit and the supporting actresses and actors. I feel like she was probably the best one. So, that's just me. And then there's Austin Butler as Fade Rotha. Wow. And when I say wow, I mean wow. He's the ultimate antagonist, bringing a psychotic edge to the character. The unsettling theme music accompanying him adds layers to his performance. Every scene is drenched in tension. There's so many scenes that I love from him, and every last one of them is just menacing. Austin Butler did a good job with Elvis and all his other roles, but man, Fade Rotha it might actually be one of his roles that he's going to be known for a while. But maybe I'm just overhyping it. And, you can't forget Timothée Chalamet as Paul. That final speech, chills. His delivery in that moment was incredibly powerful, making you feel the weight of his journey. Dude, I mean, I know we're going to talk about it more, but that final speech was, near perfection. That was, I swear, I could watch this over and over and over again, and, dude, that speech will always give me chills. Anyways, we'll get into more of it. And before we go into my next positive for the movie, I gotta give an honorable mention to Léa Seydoux, because she brought such depth to her role as the Bene Gesserit. After seeing her in Death Stranding, the video game by Kojima Productions, I really hope she's in the next Dune movie, so I cannot wait to see her in Dune Messiah. Next up, the cinematography, which is absolutely stunning. The black and white sequence, genius. The whole black and white sequence with Fade Rotha and his whole battle scene against the 3 Atreides prisoners was absolutely amazing. Like, dude, and Austin Butler, like, I know I already talked about acting, but man, Austin Butler as Fade Rotha, like, rocked that scene. Like, I know we're talking about cinematography now, but that black and white on top of Austin Butler's performance was amazing, dude. I can't express like how much I love that scene. It adds a level of sadness and tension that just perfectly fits Fade's character. And come on, I can't be the only one on that's going on about this, but we can't forget about that overhead shot of Paul walking through the crowd towards the end of the movie. Like, after, like, spoiler alert, but after he drinks the water of life and he's going to go and, like, basically convince the rest of the Fremen that he's the Messiah and he's gonna lead them to paradise, and he walks through the hundreds and thousands of Fremen, and then it's like the overhead shot, which is like you see like everybody and you just see like him like barely. Dude, that was like that was such a good scene. That was such a good scene. I love that scene. And everything about that was awesome. Like, seriously, when he walks through the crowd, the scene is like breathtaking and powerful. That was such a good scene. And the scene where Lady Jessica drinks the water of life is a visual feast, with those like fluorescent blue colors interplaying beautifully with her reactions, like them like going back and forth between like showing like the blue of like the water of life, like mixing into her system, along with like how it's affecting the baby, and the Lady Jessica's actual reaction to like her like almost like seeing the future, almost like her eyes and her mind like opening, is so amazing. And the orange hue to the entire movie brings like the world of Dune to a whole new level. It's moments like these that make Dune Part 2 like visually unforgettable. It's by far probably the strongest piece of this movie. Now, let's talk about romance. The chemistry between Paul and Shani is palpable. The quiet moments and the close-ups do wonders for the relationship, building tension without overshadowing the main plot. Like, I felt like so for those who don't know, I have read a bit of the book, the actual like original Dune book, and it does have the romance included with Shani and Paul, but I do not think that they did this like wrong at all. I thought they did the romance actually really good. I thought they did this well. I don't think they like put any like more spotlight on it. I don't think they like made this like too giant. I don't think they made this like this romance to the point where like people are eye rolling and are just taking up too much time. I honestly, it just feels right. Like, it feels well timed, not rushed at all. I honestly think that this is just like almost like a perfect romance. Like, if you've seen the movie, of course it doesn't end well. It's not a perfect romance, but I do think that how they built it, how they showed it, how Paul admires Shani, how Shani and Paul complement each other, and during some scenes, like especially like the scene after Paul rides the worm, like their whole romance, and especially the ending, is just crafted really well. I honestly, when I was watching it, I did not feel like it was just blowing up the movie at all. So I feel like they just got it just right, and like I said, it was well timed and not rushed at all. And of course, Hans Zimmer's score is perfection. If you haven't listened to yet, please listen to the Dune Part 2 soundtrack by Hans Zimmer. It is amazing. Like, even when you watch the movie, his music is amazing, dude. The music complements every scene flawlessly, especially in those romantic moments. It had that sense of delicacy, but also like wonder and that feeling of like a new chapter. Like, I think it's like the violin part of the music. Like, I'm not like a music tech or anything, but that like the violin, the flute, it moves you. It gives you that feeling of like a new chapter, and it really gets that feeling across for Shawnee and Paul, especially during those romantic moments, which is really awesome. And on top of that, his score had a perfect sound design with almost like the sounds of the desert, which really immerses you in the world. It, I don't know, everything about this score, this music score and soundtrack, just really did amazing things for this movie. It really complemented every part, every scene well. I don't think there was actually a single track or a single section of a track that they used that did not work for the movie. I honestly thought that the sound, the music, like everything worked. I can't really say much else other than I thought this score was perfect and it really immerses you in the world. But no film is without its flaws. So let's discuss the cons, unfortunately. And after watching this, yes, there is some cons. So first up, we have to talk about it. We have to address the elephant in the room. That kiss between Fade Rotha and Vladimir Harkonnen, that was something. That was definitely something. It was a bit bizarre, don't you think? Like everything was just kind of. It was going. From what I remember, it was the montage. It showed Fade Rotha being promoted, I think, and like it was like a. If you look in the perspective of Fade Rotha and Vladimir, it makes sense, like because they honor one another, but like it's so bizarre. Like for those who don't know, it was unscripted. The kiss that Fade Rotha gave to Vladimir, not the first one where Vladimir kisses Fade, Fade kissing Vladimir. That one was unscripted. That was on Austin Butler's end. And apparently, even Stellan Skarsgård got off guard. So that was really interesting, to say the least. I don't. And if you look into it, it says that Austin Butler did it, so it shows Fade Rotha's like almost like admiration towards his uncle Vladimir Harkonnen, but like it just doesn't make any sense, you know? Like it's not that it didn't make sense. It's so just weird. It's so weird, and I don't know. It's nothing that brought the film down. It was just not something that you would expect, especially from Fade Rotha. Even though he's a lunatic of a character, you wouldn't expect that from him. But I don't know. Overall, I just kind of wanted to put that out there. It is something that kind of didn't ruin the film, but it definitely caught me off guard. Next, pacing. There's a section where it does slow down. I'm just gonna get into it. There's a section where it slows down, particularly when Gurney Halleck is introduced, which his character is a whole other situation, but that I'll get into that later. The movie does lose momentum there. I think there's another scene that also loses momentum. The scene where Paul Atreides is in the tent with like a lot of other Fremen. I don't know where it's from or what scene was before. I think it was after Paul does the attack with all the other Fremen on the Harkonnen ship and ultimately saves Shawnee from that attack. And so I think, yeah, and then it goes to the scene where Paul is sitting with other Fremen and getting like his Fremen name, Muad'Dib. And that scene was good, but that was also another scene where it lost momentum a little bit. So it did kind of slow down. It wasn't like a big thing that slowed down, but it was still like noticeable. But the biggest like section was when Josh Brolin's character Gurney Halleck got introduced. That was when it started slowing down. Like, yeah, it was necessary because, again, spoiler alert, but the movie's been out for like 8 months now, so you can watch it on Max. But when Gurney Halleck's character got introduced, literally it just slowed down because it needed to introduce the atomic arsenal of House of Atreides. But even then, yeah, it was used or like mentioned in the end of the movie, but like I don't know, it just slowed way down, like way, way, way down. So, which kind of sucks, but I guess it's what happens. You can't get a perfectly paced movie. But I will say though, it does pick back up when, again, another spoiler alert, when Paul Atreides drinks the water of life, and it gets to the scene where Shawnee comes in and finds him basically dead, and she resurrects him through the Bene Gesserit. Yeah, that's when it picks back up, and that's when it really just full sends into the finale, which is good. But again, we're talking about the pacing. So yeah, it was just like overall, like other than that one section, it was actually a well-paced movie, but that just kind of slowed it all down. So it is what it is, though. You can't really fix pacing, but it did feel like a necessary drag that could have been handled better. So I guess we just have to take what you can get. So other than that pacing section, the movie was still good. Finally, some characters felt unnecessary. Now, I'm going to level with you. I did see this movie, Dune Part Two, back in March when it was released in theaters, and I haven't watched it in a long time. So when I watched it recently, literally last night, during for my review, I literally had the same thought last night when I got out of the theater, that some characters just felt unnecessary. They really did. Mainly the Baron and Raven, and now after watching it again, Gurney. Those are like the big three that are just like so unnecessary. So the Baron, I like Baron Harkonnen. I really do. I really like that character. I think he's menacing. I think he's just so powerful. But like in the first movie he was, at least. But in this movie, he's just hooked up to hoses the whole time, which I get because he's healing from poison gas, which I thought he would have been healed by now. But at the same time, you have to remember this movie, Dune Part 2, literally takes place right after Dune Part 1. Like literally 1 second after Dune Part 1. So, but still. So he's healing, that's fine. But even then, he's just like sitting in pools of like tar liquid stuff like 24/7, and he's not really like doing anything. Like, yeah, Faye Rotha went to him like a couple times for just to talk to him, and like for power, he gave orders to Robin, but even then he's just like not doing anything. Like I remember like after I watched the movie last night, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, he had the same like role as Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. Like think about it. Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars had that Emperor powerful role, but wasn't really featured or thought of as a powerful character. Same thing with Baron. He has power. He is a powerful character. I almost want to say the leader of the Harkonnens. But yet we don't see a lot of him in this movie, and he ultimately dies, which by the way is a slow death. They dragged his death. Very dramatic, but whatever. So yeah, it's just overall the Baron just didn't feel like he needed to be in this movie. Like he both needed to be in this movie and not need to be in this movie. And now there's Robin. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm going to pronounce it like Robin, but Dave Bautista's character. His character took a huge downgrade in this movie. Huge downgrade. It's only because he was a good general in this movie, or not in this movie, Dune Part 1, but when you listen to him and see him in Dune Part 2, he's just not. It's almost like he's a different character. Like, I'm being dead serious when I say that. It's almost like he's a different character. Because first they promote him, which that was stupid of the movie because like they promoted him and then Fade Rotha like basically takes charge and belittles him and everything. So that was like totally pointless, 100% pointless. But besides the point, it's just like they promote him in the beginning of the movie. Then we get a scene with him like acting like mean and powerful like a general of like trying to find the Fremen and everything and trying to get spice control. But then you see like in the middle of the movie, Fade Rotha like comes in basically and stomps all over him, figuratively and I guess kind of literally. And then he's just like this, I don't know, almost like he almost had like this cowardness like feel to him. And then in the end he just died. Like dude, he died to Gurney, which like out of all of them, I feel like he was probably the best one because he was the one that was like really wanted revenge. But his death was like terrible, man. I don't know. He did have more importance than Baron did, but it was just like, I don't know. He was almost like Robin almost was used in this movie almost as like a doormat. Like just to like prop other characters up and just have other characters wipe their feet on him, which kind of sucks. And then by the end of the movie, they basically threw the doormat out of the window. So I don't know. His character just felt just so not useful and not necessary. But I think that was probably the less of the three of them. Gurney was also one that I did not think was necessary either. His character was like, I don't know, they introduced him, but it was so, for me, I call these characters page turners. So if you don't know what a page turner is, a page turner is basically a character that all their whole purpose is just to move story from one plot point to another. That's all they do. And that was Gurney's character. Think about it. All Gurney's character did was move the Fremen and then announce that, hey, by the way, Atomic Arsenal from House of Atreides is actually still there. It hasn't been destroyed. And then showed him, and boom, that's it. That's literally all his character did. He didn't actually provide any insight. He didn't do anything. Like in a figurative way, he didn't like move, you know? Like he didn't like do anything. And I think that's like the problem of the movie with his character. Not the movie itself, just his character. I just feel like he could have done a lot more. I feel like they could have used Gurney and Baron and Robin so much more, but then they ended up not doing that for some weird reason. I don't know why, but I know there's like a lot of characters to juggle, but when you have that much time to make a movie and you don't have enough spotlight for all the characters, it just kind of makes you question like, what have you been doing then, you know? And maybe that was on purpose. Maybe the characters were on purpose. Maybe they had to take a backseat, but I don't know. For it being Stellan Skarsgård last performance and Dave Bautista's last performance as both Baron and Robin, that was terrible. That was a terrible way to go out, but I guess it is what it is. I guess you can't really change it, but I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's just a shame when you have such a talented cast and not have it fully utilized. But I guess you can't really win with everything, so it's a little that's like my major con for this movie, but overall it's still a good movie. So, what's the golden moment of Dune Part 2? It's undoubtedly, and I can't be the only one on this, Timothée Chalamet's powerful speech at the end. Seriously, like I know I already mentioned that I saw this movie in theaters, but man, when I got out of that theater, that speech was the only thing that was like sticking in my mind. Like that finale was good too, but that speech, man, that speech was so insanely powerful. And it kind of like when I was taking notes on this movie last night for the review, I did think of like how his speech kind of made this movie full circle of like how powerful that speech is. Because if you didn't know, like, or if you can't remember, the movie starts with a quote and it says power over spice is power over all, which is extremely powerful, and it honestly kind of like applies to everything in the movie. But besides the point, the speech was insanely powerful, and the crazier thing is that he was speaking only the Fremen language. He was speaking only their language, and yet it was still powerful. Like the fact that like he basically just like went in there and told basically everybody to shut up and like say, "Hey, I'm the chosen one. I will lead you to paradise. Like no one can stand against me." And then once everybody like stands up with like their knife and everything, like dude, like they're about to like kill this guy, he like literally goes up to like some random Fremen and foresees the past basically of like some random person that he never seen before, and reveals why this movie's called Dune, which is what the Fremen used to be called. And literally, like, everybody was like, "LISAN GAIB," and just bowed down and everything. Like, that was insanely powerful. And then Gurney's and Shawnee's reaction based off of his speech and his reaction and him basically claiming as the Messiah and the Chosen One. Ooh, man. Dude, I'm telling you, that speech gives me chills every single time I've seen it. I remember after I left the theater, it was like maybe a week or two after I've seen Dune Part Two, I was trying to search up that speech that he had, and it was on YouTube, and man, I replayed that 24/7. I loved that speech so much. Like, it was such a good speech. It was such a good acting performance by Timothée Chalamet. Like, that's the moment where like everything comes together. Like the stakes, the emotions, the journey. Like seriously, when I'm serious when I say this, it's what you walk away thinking about. It is. Alright folks, that wraps up our review of Dune Part 2. Overall, I thought this was a very, very solid movie. I thought the pacing was a little bit iffy. There were some characters that were unnecessary. I don't have to mention them again. They were unnecessary. And I thought that one kissing scene was a little strange, to say the least. But I think those are all very on the minor side. And I think the pros like outweigh that like hugely. And so I think this movie was like just so amazing. It had great cinematography, had great acting, it had a great music score by Hans Zimmer. Like I don't think there's like literally anything I could do to this film that would make it even better. Like it was already kind of perfection. So if I had to give it a score, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10, which is very unusual for me because 9.5 out of 10 is like the highest I'll go. I will never go to like a 10 out of 10 ever. I will never do a 10 out of 10. But 9.5 is basically my perfection number. So, all in all, this was a very, very good movie. But, enough about me. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, maybe even your own movie suggestions for future episodes. But before we go, let's do a little trivia. Here's the question. Which actor originally portrayed Feyd-Rautha in the 1984 Dune film? Do you think you know? Drop your answers, and I'll give you a shout out to the correct one in one of our upcoming episodes. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Letterboxd at DriveInChatPod. Until next time, keep the popcorn poppin' and the reels rollin'.